Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of me programming daily. Tonight, again, an evening session. I had a pretty busy day, and I'm very much looking forward to winding down and writing some Haskell code and working on drakon renderer again. During the last session, we made pretty good progress. Well, when I say we, I made a pretty good progress cleaning up the code, removing all the obsolete old pieces. And I also started experimenting with the real-life diagram 1, which after further reading, I discovered it's not just any drakon diagram, it's a silhouette diagram. So it's... from what I've learned, drakon diagrams are divided into two categories. The first category is primitive diagrams, and the second category is silhouette diagrams. Let me show you the difference. Primitive diagrams look something like this. They start in just like any diagram, but the second icon is always singular. It means that the title icon always only has one dependent. And to the best of my knowledge, that identifies a primitive diagram. However, silhouette diagrams is something that I've been working on here in Real Life Diagram Part 1. So apparently this is a silhouette diagram where you have the title icon and then you have a number of sections. These are not choices, these are headlines, and these divide a bigger problem into more self-contained sections. So having done a little bit of reading and watching drakon videos, I decided to put a pin in this type of diagrams, in silhouette diagrams, and polish up whatever we can in the context of primitive diagrams. Meaning implement all the missing bits that would be relevant to us in the short/midterm, and only when we have a pretty good, robust framework for charting primitive diagrams, then we can decide on next steps. And I'm not really sure if silhouette diagrams would be a sensible next step. Maybe a sensible next step would be to implement, say, a web API, or maybe a robust CI/CD, or maybe to release drakon renderer to Hackage. We'll see. For now, I think I have my hands full with primitive diagrams. So here, I created a new issue identified by 81, and issue 81 is just this video about flowcharts in drakon, or drakon part 1. And in it, in a very condensed fashion, you might have heard of this sort of initiative or group, Drakon Hub or Drakon Tech or Drakon Editor. It's all done by the same person. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. But to give full credit, yeah, Stepan Mitkin. This is the person responsible for the Drakon Editor. Looks like a very talented individual, and kudos to him for helping me get into drakon. Unfortunately, what I'm looking for is slightly different to what we can find in the Drakon Hub. By the way, starting this repository now. It's slightly different because I'm really looking for a reasonably portable library that I can later on turn into maybe an API. So, where was I? tons of really interesting information here in the Drakon Hub, and tons of inspirational diagrams I'll be most likely using to test my engine. So let us see. So the issue I want to spend some time on during this session and during probably a number of upcoming sessions is this, to flesh out primitive diagrams following initially this video. But ultimately, I believe we also have a ton of other examples of icons that also can be used in the primitive type of diagrams. Let's quickly revisit the source here, which is Wikipedia. And here we should have all the available types of icons. Yes. So let's look for. See here, we don't even have a mention of a primitive diagram or a silhouette diagram. Oh no, there is a. The picture below illustrated the execution of a silhouette drakon diagram. Yeah, so it's just relatively briefly mentioned, and it's not contrasted with the primitive type of diagram. So this type of diagram, I will most likely not be interested in the short term. In the long term, absolutely yes. So let's take a look at these icons. I know that the issue I've created today will have this sort of loop icons. Let's see if we can see them here in the example. Begin of for loop, end of for loop. Very nice. So let's create a couple of issues today. I want to get ready for the for loop, but also what I would like to test is whether a connection like this can even be made. For now, I know for sure that I don't have these arrows implemented, but what I'm not sure about is how a connection like that would look like. It would most likely start somewhere here in the center of the icon, go up and back to the target, which is not what we want. I believe this is relatively easy to fix, so maybe we can focus on this today. Let's not spend too much time programming today, not to exhaust too much energy at the beginning of the week already. It's only Monday. Let's conserve some energy for the remainder of the week. So today, I'll just create an issue to eventually create the for loop icons, which I believe we only have two. Begin and end. It's an enhancement. Okay, and in the meantime, Oh, there's also one issue that I found, and I've already added to the list of validation ideas. What I concluded from the video, or what I heard in the video, was that the end icon only ever displays the end description. It doesn't accept any other type of description. So what we have today is very permissive and incorrect from the point of view of drakon. The title icon can display any sort of text, and the end icon can only display end. So I added an issue to validation ideas here. And icon does not accept a description, but also it feels to me that we'll have to alter the type of input icon, because right now the icon kind can be anything, and we can possibly and the description can be anything. So technically we can introduce invalid state if we don't validate for it. Another thing that I sort of started thinking about, apologies, it's in my private notes. I'll show it in a little second. Another issue that we will have to tackle, and I keep thinking about this more and more frequently, is the drakon syntax. What I initially had in mind for drakon renderer would be something like mermaid, specifically something like a flowchart or a state diagram syntax, where it's immediately obvious what's going on. But there, it has a number of shortcomings, namely, especially the state diagram syntax. If you want the state to have a description other than its identifier, you need to define it up front. State string identifier with possibly invalid characters, invalid for an ID as ID. So the syntax I have in mind for drakon for now is something like this, but this is not the final draft. I just think it would be pretty elegant. If you take a closer look, it would look something like this. Identifier of an icon, its kind or type, then its description, which you see I'm not using any quotes or double quotes. It will just automatically be assumed that it's between this bracket and the pipe symbol, which we will have to escape. I think say backslash. And here we have the collection of dependents. So it's not JSON, it's not Mermaid, it's something custom for drakon. And this is obviously just the first take of the syntax, but I think it's pretty elegant, and it already pretty clearly conveys what the diagram is going to look like. Now, I've been talking for a while now. Let's write some code. So let's close this. And let's create a branch. So today I would like to see how a diagram like this would behave. Okay, so let's put it to the right, or pull it to the right. This will pull to the left. And let's call it a primitive diagram. There is no shame in copying a number of icons from previous diagrams. Now, if you contrast this syntax to the syntax I have in mind, this is naturally much more compact, and it's, in my opinion, much easier to connect the dots. 2 has a dependent of 3, 3 has a dependent of 4 and 5, 4 and 5 are actions, and their dependent is the icon number 6, which is the end. Now, let's continue. So, first order of business is to try and replicate what Stepan, or whoever was building this diagram, had here. So title, let's work out. Let's say its name or identifier is going to be 1. It depends on identifier number 2. Sorry, it has one dependent, which is identifier number 2, which is warm. And this is not a headline. It's an action, and it has one dependent of type question and of identifier 3. Now 4 is going to be the end. Which does not depend on anything. And five is action. Lift lift the weight. That will depend on the question number, or identified as 3. This is our diagram, but not to make it so tricky potentially to begin with, let's make this dependent into 4. To connect this action, lift the weight to the end, and let's see how this renders. Now, because I have an excellent memory, I remember what happened the last time. And I need to copy this branch from another terminal. I remember the issue name was 81. It looks like we have track changes, so that shouldn't be. no problem. Now in the run file, let's specify this type of, or this new diagram to be rendered. So my input is this. And finally, SVG. And let's see how this works. That was very fast. Lifted the weight. So let's quickly compare how the two look like. Work out, warm up, tired, and lift the weight. Now, yes goes here correctly. Now connects to lift the weight correctly. You know what? Without any false modesty, I like how the icons are very symmetrical or symmetrically positioned. All of them are of the same width and height. I'm not sure how the render is going to evolve, but this is very visually pleasing to me at the moment. Now, this connection that should be rendered like so, unfortunately goes here. But that's not the end of the world. Let's remember we lifted the weight to the end instead of the question. So now the natural progression would be to connect it to the end. Sorry, to connect it to question. So number 3. And see how that looks like. So it looks very similarly. The problem is I like how it enters the space between, or space before the question icon, but it just needs to bypass this icon, lift the weight. Okay, so that is going to be in the, I think, render. And if I'm not mistaken, we'll have a special condition somewhere here. Start to finish waypoints. So it looks like we're finally approaching the point where we'll have to also compare the y coordinates. In our case, x1 is greater than x2 because the connection goes from right to left, but also y1 is lower than y2. So here we have guards, and I'm not sure if it's going to be elegant enough, but let's code it anyway. So if y1 is lower than y2, so for now, let's provide the same resolution for two different cases. It's incorrect, but I just want this to compile. So now this can take the whole screen. Now, in this case, what we want to do is to first go down from the start. It will be this connection. So y1 minus icon height go to the right. Which is x1 plus icon width then this will have to change. X1 plus icon width. And finally, X2. Okay, let's see if this works. Did work. All right, so the one last thing that we have to do is to render the arrow at the end. But I'm already pretty happy with this. I'm going to commit this. Okay, let's see how this looks on a white background. Yeah, pretty nice. So I have nothing to complain about here. Cool, we can add the arrow maybe during upcoming sessions, but we're going in the right direction, and we have focus for the upcoming sessions, and it is to flesh out whatever requirements there are for primitive diagrams. I think we're in a pretty good spot. So for today, I think I will wrap it up. I thank you very much for sticking with me and for maybe expressing interest in the drakon renderer. I think this is a fascinating piece of technology, and I think it has so many applications if done right. I hope I can do it justice. And shout out again to Stepan Mitkin again for really kicking it off in the modern era of software engineering. With that, I wish you all a fantastic evening and good night.